Okay, it's 5:34. I'll open the meeting. I won't open the meeting just yet. Okay, 5:35. I'll open the meeting. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on this evening, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I note there's a few people in our gallery, so in the event of an emergency procedure, we're out the doors, double door behind you, to the right and through the opening doors, and proceed to the far side of the street and await direction, please. Also, for the people in the gallery and councillors, this meeting has been live streamed in accordance with the live streaming policy of Hilltops Council. What that means is that any comments or remarks that are made in the gallery may be well picked up and broadcast out live. So I just err with caution. Next item is public forum. We have no speakers tonight in the public forum. Next item along is apologies. Do we have any apologies for tonight? No apologies. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflict of interest, councillors, to declare? Councillor Rolls and Councillor Manchester.
I have a non-pecuniary interest for 7/16, 1988.
I have a non-pecuniary interest for 11.4, 1998.
Staff got those? Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, also the draft, I think I noted in the last week's paper, the Crown Roads one, so I noticed that's back to 4 points, so I just can't find the number.
You're talking about the draft Crown Roads policy for public exhibition?
We'll give it a change to items in front of council for consideration, yes.
1987.
Yeah,
That the one?
That's it.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I also have one for 1987 non-pecuniary interest, endorsing the draft Crown Roads policy.
Thank you, Councillor Stadtmiller. We've got them listed?
Yes.
Thank you. Could we please be upstanding? Expressions of sympathy, please. Could we have a moment's silence, please, for the following? Eric Lowe, Rosalind Curtis, Rion Chown, William Waugh, Kevin Baker, John Tracy, Kira Whitehead, Morris Summerfield, Lillian Ashton and Guy Dixon. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes of the last Hilltops Council meeting held 27th March 2019.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to move.
Move Councillor Flannery.
Just with a comment, I'm pretty sure Councillor Rolls was in the room regarding 19/55, no, not in the room. Clarification on that.
Yes, also, Mr. Mayor, I noticed 1949, Councillor Rolls was supposed to be out of the room, but he seconded the motion. That's true. No, some maybe powers or whatever.
Staff noted those changes to the minutes. I've had a move and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Aye. Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Last time's lost my page. That takes me to item the mayoral report. The mayoral report is there in front of you, councillors. To my activities, there's nothing that jumps out at me at this particular moment, except that on the weekend I did attend the Dressage Association out at Bendick Moral. I noted last year they had record numbers of 260 or 70. This year they had record numbers again of 330 participants. They had to put in another area, dressage area, to accommodate them. It just continues to grow, and the feedback from everyone involved was fantastic, so we're pleased to be part of that. So it was great to see, and it's a great thing for our region. So that's just to be noted, my report. Someone happy to move that be noted? Councillor, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Flannery, thank you. Having said that, I would imagine that I'll go around the table for Councillor's report, but I just can't see it in front of me. We've got an item before that in the paper, which is 1971, Sister City Lanzhou China Visit 2019. The responsible officer is the Mayor. Okay. The Mayor received a letter from Lanzhou inviting myself and to visit a trade fair in China, and they spoke to me verbally about this matter, and the invitation came formally last week before last, I think, and it's been distributed to councillors, and our sister city are happy to take care of accommodation, food and transportation for up to 5 members of a group in Lanzhou, and well, if the delegation is there, so I informed staff that I would respectfully take up that invitation out of a sign of respect that had been offered to go and visit, given that they sent a delegation out to us, and we bore no part of any of that cost. I have stated before that if I was invited to go to China, out of respect and to build that trust back there with the sister city that had fell away in the last few years, I was quite prepared to take care of my own funding if it came to that. So that was my conversation around this matter. The correspondence was sent out to councillors and asked councillors, was anyone interested in being part of that delegation? We've had 2 responses to that email, and that's what's brought this recommendation that sits in front of you now. So that's about the best report I can give on the matter. The recommendation is there in front of you, councillors. It's moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor Rolls. Any questions or debate on the matter?
Point of clarification.
Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, I note that Council is currently advertising its sister city relationship policy. It's open for public comment, closing the 28th of March. Council has not adopted that policy, and it's not part of it, doesn't form part of the agenda for this business. So, based upon that fact, it would appear to me that the draft sister city policy is not applicable, and that the applicable policy would be the former Young Shire Council's policy that related to council sponsorship of mayoral visits to sister cities. That being the case, I'd like to think that council could follow that policy rather than expend 3 times the amount allocated by that policy in achieving this outcome.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Armstrong. That leads to the question of what the former policy of the former Young Council stated. I have a rough idea, but I'll hand to you for historical knowledge and corporate knowledge.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to refer back to the General Manager for that. I do note that at the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee meeting held at the end of last year in December, that this policy has not been rescinded. ARIC received a full list of policies that have been rescinded and created, and this policy was not on that list, so there certainly hasn't been any rescission of it. I'll leave it to the General Manager to find the policy.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through the Chair, I will take the question on notice in relation to the amount. What I can tell you that the current new policy on exhibition has had no submissions and is expected to be adopted with no changes at the next meeting.
Mr Mayor, this is the General Manager. I'd like to inform the General Manager that that's not Council policy now. It is a draft policy. It has not been adopted by Council.
Okay, so there's a bit of work to be done in relation to this recommendation by the sound of that. I've had a mover and a seconder. Would the mover like to speak for the recommendation?
Well, as you said, Mr Mayor, I think it's good to continue the relationship that the former Youngshire Council had with the sister city. I note that you sell cherries to that part of the world and to their city in particular. I did attend the meeting with the delegation from China a few months ago at the town hall, and they are eager to create goodwill. They're eager to do business with us, and they're eager to understand this war and how we're about, and vice versa. It can only do good by visiting their part of the world and their city in particular, our sister city, and enhance the already pretty good relationship that's been formed over the years.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, if I may, I'd like to foreshadow a motion that we defer it till the next meeting of Council until we have some idea of what the policy that currently exists actually says.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. The only comment I was to make was that I'm not too sure about putting this recommendation, given that it may fly in the face of a policy that we currently have existing, and that's exactly what I'm worried about. So, do I have... You foreshadowed a motion. Having said that, I'll put this one. That's right. So I'm at the stage, I'll put the recommendation that's in front of us. Okay, councillors? All those in favour? Again? We'll start again. All those in favour of this recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The recommendation, the motion is lost. Councillor Tuckerman.
I move that the matter be deferred to the next meeting once Council has been advised on what the former Young Council policy is in relation to sister city relationships and travel.
Through the Chair, if the Hilltops Sister City Council policy is adopted at the next meeting, the amount indicated in that policy is the amount of $10,000. So indeed that will be for consideration at the next meeting. I certainly am happy to take it on notice and to find the Youngshire Council Sister City policy. It doesn't seem to be available online, and get that figure back to you about what the previous policy parameters were.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just thinking about the whole procedure in regards to the motion that was just lost.
It's lost, so your foreshadowed motion goes up now if you'd like to put it up. When you second, then you put the motion up.
Mr. Mayor, we either need to amend the policy to cater for the proposal, or we're going to be back to square one at the next meeting.
All I can do is go by the guidelines that I'm bound to. I had a full shadowed motion put to me during the debate of a motion that was lost. Now, if the mover of that full shadowed motion puts that motion now up on the screen and it has a seconder, I will put it up.
Yep, happy to do that.
Do I have a seconder for that motion that's on there? Seconded, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, just a question. When does a policy committee meet? Will that, excuse me, will they be meeting before the next meeting?
They meet daily, Councillor.
Could I move an amendment to the foreshadowed amendment that the policy be adopted to cater for the intention of the former Young Shire policies travel amount be amended to cater for what the intent of this motion here is.
Without me turning around and having a look at the motion that's on the board, I'm not too sure of what the foreshadowed motion is.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I don't believe that particular recommendation is in order, in that it is attempting to create the outcome for an issue that the council has not yet debated.
And was lost, correct. Okay, what I'm going to do, we've got to move in a second. I'm going to put...
Can I have a point of clarification?
Councillor Walker.
Am I to understand that the new draft Hilltops policy will be presented at the next meeting?
Through the Chair, the Hilltops Sister City policy is currently out on exhibition, Councillor Walker, and is out for exhibition for 28 days indeed, which the normal process would be to return that policy back to Council at the next meeting for endorsement. Yes.
So am I reading from that one can follow the other?
We're adopting a Hilltops policy that takes over from a policy that is currently in existence by default, of the former Young Council. Until the Hilltops Sister City policy comes into place, that is the policy that we are guided by.
Now, my question is, if the new policy is adopted next meeting, and this is deferred from the next meeting, can one not follow the other?
I would presume so. Okay, we've got...
Mr. Mayor, that's assuming that the policy is adopted.
That's correct, Councillor.
The issue I have with process in regards to this, because the motion's been lost, is it not something we can't discuss at the next meeting or for the next 3 months?
No, that's not the case.
Under the Code of Meeting Practice, we can discuss this matter again, but if it is lost again, we can't discuss it for 3 months.
Okay, thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Again? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Well. Item 1972, councillors' reports, meetings attended and community recognition. Councillor Horton's provided a written commentary on where he's been, again, and been busy. I'll go around the room. Councillor Horton, do you want to talk to you?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Since the last report, I've attended 18 meetings. I'd just like to speak about 2 of those. The SES in Harden had an open day a couple of Sundays back, which I attended. There must have been at least a dozen volunteers there, all in their uniform. Displays were fantastic, and I didn't realise until that day just how much work these people put in and how how passionate they are about what they do. They do great things, and I guess until such time as you need help, you don't just realise what they do. But it's a real eye-opener to me, and I think it should go on record that Council appreciates what they do and congratulate them excuse me, on the work that they do. The other one, the Kite Festival, we've been busy there. Our main concern, as mentioned at our last meeting, is getting better access for vehicles coming in and out of the area, and we're working on a couple of other new perhaps entrances that we may be able to utilise. So that's an ongoing work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 28th of March, the Hilltops ARIC meeting. 3rd of April, budget workshop. 10th of April, budget workshop at BOOROWA. Also on the 10th of April was a Reeves Flat community workshop. It was quite enlightening. On the 16th, the LEP Working Committee and Council workshop. Various constituent interviews and meetings as minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Rolls. Councillor Armstrong's still got his speaker on. We can't have, Councillor Horton's got his on as well. We can't. Yeah, thank you.
On the 28th, there was a reception for ANU medical students, and then the Lambing Flat Festival, an art show, and considering it was a freezing night, it was still well attended. The budget meeting, and then Godfrey's Creek RFS shed opening, which was a lovely Sunday, and I was more than happy to be with a group of dedicated and enthusiastic volunteers. Financial Assistance and Sponsorship Committee in Harden, and the budget workshop at BOOROWA, and together with Councillor Armstrong and the Mayor, attended the Reeves Flat Village meeting, which was most enlightening, as comment has been passed. There was a meeting with Livy's Playground, and then LEP workshop and meeting, and this evening I'm more than happy to be at the council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls, and thank you for filling in for me at the Godfrey Creek station. Appreciate it. Councillor Manchester.
The minuted meetings and the LEP meeting on the 16th.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Stadtmiller.
Meetings as minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Just various workshops. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A number of joint use project meetings in regards to the library and the budget workshop at BOOROWA, and meetings as minuted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Wombat Progress Association meeting, Harden Visitor Information Centre meeting, the 2 budget workshops, HRDC breakfast, Hilltops Wellbeing Action Group, which was really great, the Local Health Advisory Committee meeting, and the LEP meeting. And I'd like to commend the staff at both the budget meetings and the LEP meeting for really organised information and really informative information. I thought they did a great job.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Walker.
Workshops and meetings as minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
The budget meeting, Mr. Mayor, I think it's on the 10th. I'd also just like to make comment on the condolences. There's been 2 very sad funerals in Harden in the last 2 months that have hit noted in the last 2 months meeting, and they're taking a toll on the youth in this community. There's been fantastic support from the council staff. It's been terribly sad, and just heartfelt call to those families and that generation of kids that are going to grow up with memories.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery, for that, and sentiments that are shared by a lot of people. Okay, we'd like to have those reports be noted, please, councillors, and accepted. Someone want to move that way? Councillor Wallace, seconded. Councillor Manchester, all those in favour? So be it, thank you. Item 1973, public apology leaking of confidential information. Councillor Stadtmiller, and the reports there, and the recommendation I would suggest should read that Council A or B, depending on what happens right now.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to receive some advice on what I do in regards to 19/73.
Okay, having taken on board Councillor Stadtmiller's comments, I would suggest that the recommendation would read that Council acknowledge that if an apology should not occur, then this lack of action would be referred to the Office of Local Government for further consideration. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the recommendation?
Yes, I move.
Move Councillor Wallace. Second it. I'll second it. Have a mover and second for the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 1974, public apology, leaking of confidential information. Councillor Walker. The report again is there. I would suggest the same thing. The recommendation would read that Council A or B, depending on Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. Since reading this, I've received a letter that this issue is confidential. So I'll be seeking advice.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Given that response, Council, I would say the recommendation reads that Council acknowledge that if an apology should not occur, then this lack of action would be referred to the Office of Local Government for further consideration. Move Councillor Wallace, sorry. Seconded. Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 1975 is the Draft Code of Meeting Practice Policy. Recommendation, adopt the Draft Code of Meeting Practice Policy. In your hands, councillors. It's moved Councillor O'Connor.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Manchester, thank you. Comments, discussion? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? So be it, thank you. Yep. Item 1976. Councillors, just hold on a moment. Councillor Walker, are you asking to be noted as voting against that? Thank you. Item 1976 is the Draft Code of Conduct, and the recommendation is that Council adopt the Draft Code of Hilltops Council. I'm in your hands again, councillors.
Move it, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Manchester. Seconded Councillor Horton. Comments or discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? So be it, carried. Thank you. Item 1977 is the BOOROWA Silos Superb Parrot Public Art Request. This is put together by the General Manager, and the recommendations there. Would you like to speak to the recommendation, General Manager, or someone like to move and second what's there?
I'd like to move into Committee of the Whole, please, Mr Mayor.
Move and second to move into Committee as a whole. All those in favour? Again, we are in Committee of the Whole. I'll hand over to Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, first of all, I just have a question for the General Manager. I certainly receive and note the report on the condition of the silos at this point. What I'd like to know is whether a section can be accessed and made safe for painting of a mural.
Through the Chair, the report you have before you is actually a visual inspection of the silos. It's actually not necessarily a detailed structural inspection of the silos themselves. There is a range of issues with the silos, including not only debris that's accumulated inside the silos because vermin's got in, there's also bits of tin hanging off. There's a substandard structure alongside the silos. So probably the quick answer is I don't think that the silos could be accessed at this point without further detailed investigation about how you could make that safe. They are unsafe because of many of the bits and pieces hanging off them. You need to do further investigation as to whether you could quarantine a part of the silo to get safe access to it.
And another question in regards to those concerns and the fact that we're currently leasing a part of that block and there's a building on that block that is leased. I think we need to probably have a look and get some more information in regards to the conditions of that lease and whether those silos are a part of that lease or whether they're not, and the concerns around access to the site, because I do know that business does access near that building. So I'm going to recommend when we go back into the committee hall that we actually defer it to a workshop and ask for further information to be brought back to council in regards to investigating the details of the current lease and information around accessing the site for the painting of a mural, and also investigating where to from here in regards to the asset.
Mr Mayor, if I could make a few comments. Our family leased the silos for, 15 or 20 years, so I'm quite familiar with them. The two bits of tin, and they were purchased from Grain Corp by BOOROWA Council in the early 90s, I think it was. I think the two bits of tin that are hanging off have been hanging off for 20 years. That's not to say they won't come off one day, but they've been hanging off for a long while. I would think that in order to paint a mural, you would secure... Well, firstly, council has an obligation to make the place safe. So if there's bits of tin being hanging off and it's been identified in a report, council has an obligation now to fix it. So that would be point number one. Point number two is I would think most of the silo is very safe. I find the noting of the where the pulley lifts the chute up for outloading of the silo to trains isn't structurally sound. I find that surprising. But I'm not an engineer, but I've put a lot of grain through it. And I think the noted fix it is once again a fairly small job. It says affixing a plate to the top side and putting another cable up, I think. As to the internals, the engineer didn't look at the internals of the silo. Potentially it is hazardous if there's grain in there and it rots for fumes. I would have thought, having read the report, the obvious thing to me is that it should have been referred to Grain Corp or one of their contractors in the first place for them to review it, because they know the silos intimately. The only real option for this is to, if we want to get it off council's books, is to sell it, and then council either needs to sell it on an as-is, where-is basis or take the necessary steps to either fully decommission it so it can't be used as a silo, so it gets sold for real estate value, and I would think it's got nil value on that basis. Someone may come along and want to turn it into flats, but unlikely. I would think that it still has some value for potentially for refurbishment as a silo. Whether council wants to have it would be zone mixed use, I imagine, but it would need considerable expenditure. I think when I last leased it, I did put a proposal to the then General Manager, Anthony Mann, and I estimated the cost to me would be about $100,000 to refurbishment. So I was looking at basically being given the silos for nil value. I did pay Grain Corp $1,600 for an inspection for the work to be done, which unfortunately the then General Manager refused to meet afterwards.
But I would think it's more than safe to put a mural up, and I think the things that need fixing have got to be fixed regardless. But more than likely, we need to. When we come back into committee, I'd be recommending that we get the Grain Court contractors to look at this and provide a report on what needs to be done to make it saleable.
Thank you for that. I think that was, from hearing Councillor Tuckerman, the intent that of moving to a workshop so all these options could be discussed and that Council could come to a consensus together to bring it back to Council. Is that my understanding, Councillor Tuckerman?
Yes, it is, Mr Mayor, and also mindful of the commercial arrangements we already have with the business within the precinct.
Yep. Thank you. So if there's no other commentary or talk about that, we'd be happy enough to come out of committee if someone would do that. Yep, it's Councillor Flannery. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. We're out of committee, councillors. Councillor Tuckerman.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the matter be referred to a workshop highlighting the extra bits of information and for further discussion on what we do with the asset. You got that?
Including the lot, I think Councillor Tuckerman's correct. The silo site and the furniture site next door are on the same lot, so a plan of subdivision would need to be developed.
Why do we need to workshop that? Why can't we do it in the report?
Because there's other information that we're required through you, Mr Mayor, to be able to make an informed decision.
Thank you. So we've got a mover of a motion on the board. Have we got a second for that? We have. Manchester.
Mr Mayor, could I just seek an amendment or a Part E? I really think we need a report from Grain Corp. There's no point in bringing back to a workshop until we know from Grain Corp or their contractors. Someone needs to get inside and inspect the inside of it. I mean, I can give a report, but I'm not qualified as part of that. So,
is the mover of the motion happy to have that?
Happy to do so, thank you.
Thank you. Is the second happy with that? Thank you. Can we put the dot point with that in there, please?
Mr Mayor, can we... I'll ask the mover and the seconder if they're happy. Can that report include the cost of making good the facility?
Yes.
For the purpose of tourist attraction.
Give us some sort of indication.
The mover and the seconder are happy for that to be added in?
Just through the chair, that's making the silos operational as a silo? Is that what you're talking?
As a tourist attraction rather than a silo.
I would prefer that be not actually as a tourist attraction, but to making good, to first of all bring it up to the standard required to either sell it or put out expressions of interest for use.
I guess that's my concern. Is that the costs to bring it up to a suitable standard to use it as a grain receival facility or storage facility may be entirely different to the costs involved in bringing it up to a standard that it can be used to have some murals painted on it and effectively establish a tourist attraction.
Well, I guess
that it would be.
We need all that information to be able to make an informed decision about what we do with it.
I thought, with respect to both councillors, the idea of the workshop was this could be all worked out and discussed with information in front of us at that particular workshop to bring a recommendation back to council. So I don't know if we need to be too pedantic about the wording of the actual last dot point, but I'll leave it with you. We got something on the board?
I think that would be suitable.
The mover's happy with that, the seconder happy with that. Thank you. Everyone understand what's on the board? All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 1978, Hilltops Merger Transition Report, final for 2019. General Managers, the recommendations there. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Walker. Questions or comments? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 1979. The final distribution of 2018-19 sponsorship and financial assistance. The reports are in front of you, council, and the recommendation is there. Move Councillor Manchester. Seconded Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item number 1980 is the alcohol-free zone suspension for the BOOROWA Irish WOOLFEST 219. And the recommendation is there in front of you, councillors.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Tuckerman. Seconded Councillor Horton, was it? Thank you. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. 1981 is the cash and investment report as of 31st of March 19, and it's there in front of you, and the recommendation is to receive the statement of cash and investments as at 31 March 2019. Moved Councillor Manchester.
I'll second it.
Second Councillor Flannery. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I was looking forward to the restrictions in this report. But...
Thank you for that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 1982 is a two-lot subdivision, 69 Noonans Road, Young. The report's there, councillors, and the recommendation is there.
I'll move for discussion.
Move the report?
Yep.
Move the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Armstrong.
For discussion purposes.
Yep. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Manchester. I'd move and a seconder. Councillor Armstrong, would you like to speak to it?
I've got one question in regards to condition 21. I note that there's a requirement that there's water availability from Hilltops Council. I'm just wondering whether water is actually available at that location, or whether it requires a significant extension of the water main.
Through the Chair, I'd ask that the Acting Director of Sustainable Growth answer that question.
Through the Chair, I might take that on notice, I think, and get back to you if that's okay.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I don't believe that the officer can take it on notice. This is a condition in a DA. Once we've passed this DA or approved it or knocked it back, whatever the case may be, then the condition stands. There's no opportunity for us to modify it. So I'd just like to know whether if water's not available, then this condition can't be met. It would constitute what I would consider to be an unreasonable condition. If water is available, then the condition can be met, but it will incur costs. Either way, I believe that council should be aware of whether the service is available or not.
Could I foreshadow a notice of motion?
Through you, yes.
In case. If my point being, Councillor Armstrong, taking on board Councillor Armstrong's point, if that's correct, and we're not sure about where this water is, we can't responsibly deal with this matter because we don't know what we may be opening up the doors for in the way of cost and expense. Would that be correct?
My concern is that we may be conditioning something that can only be achieved by means of an extensive water main extension if the water is not available in the area. My question was, is it available there?
Through you, I think I can answer that. I don't think I'm fairly confident there's no potable water from the Young or Golden Fields water supply available in that area. Because it's fairway up Noonan's Road, and I don't think the main goes out anywhere near that area.
Mr Mayor, I question the specifications of...
Councillors?
I question the specifics of 21A, B and C. Is it a requirement that electricity be on? I mean, is alternative... I understand there's a DA that's been for former Boorowa Shire approved by YAS, where a specification was that essential energy provide electricity, and they're struggling with the notion of putting on solar and batteries. I understand also that it's now an obligation, and I could be corrected, that the NBN be the first port of call for all telecommunications connections. So that is defunct.
Could I have some guidance from staff as to where we may go with this?
Through the Chair, if it is a planning decision, so if the planning decision can't be made, then the decision would have to be to defer the decision.
There comes on board the reason I foreshadowed a motion, and that motion is to defer this matter to councils. Undertakes a comprehensive look at the conditions of this development.
If the mover is happy, Mr Chair, I'd move that the mover and the seconder, which is myself, withdraw our support for the recommendation, and then let it be deferred. We need further information.
Yep. Thank you for that. So, Councillor Stadtmiller seconded the motion for deferment. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and what potentially could have been a costly error. Item 1983, Blackguard Gully Master Plan submissions. The reports there, councillors.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a motion, please, that Council acknowledge the 2 submissions received during the public exhibition period for the draft Blackguard Gully Master Plan, that Council adopt the draft Blackguard Gully Master Plan with no amendments, and that Council complete Stage 1 of the Blackguard Gully project and delegate to the General Manager to execute all documents.
Seconded.
So, as opposed to the recommendation?
Correct.
You use the motion to accept.
So basically what I'm saying is I'm not willing to defer it, and I'm not willing to put the remaining, put the grant money to the Young Aquatic Centre.
Okay, I've had a motion put and it's been seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Tuckerman?
Yeah, happy to, Mr Mayor. I think, this master plan has been through community consultation. I believe that there could be another solution in regards to funding the outstanding amount for the Young Aquatic Centre, and would address that further in the business paper. I think we need to have a little bit of vision in regards to the history of this site, and I think it should remain on track to be completed.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak against the motion? I will. Having met with the consultants and having showed what stage 1 consisted of, and then led into stage 2, which off the top of my head was stage 2 is I think $700,000. Stage 1 consisted of spending $460,000 to build some gravel paths and a toilet block in the Blackguard Gully area. Now, while I respect the heritage, as much as the next person, I'm very, very familiar with the area. I'm very well aware of how it's underutilised, what's not there, what is not there to look at. I'm also very aware that we have matters in front of us coming up in regard to the bridge and Whiteman Avenue and how that might be addressed. I feel that to spend that money now on that project to achieve so little wouldn't be the best spend of council's money. Anyone else like to speak for the motion?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Rolls.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I'm not sure how many councillors have actually been up to Blackguard Gully. I was there on Tuesday morning. And as the bones of our heritage of Young, I feel it is a very important site, and that is endorsed, I think, by the fact that it is a state heritage site. There are tailings there and the mullock heaps. While I was there, another family were going through. My feeling is that if stage 1 is completed, at least it will put on the radar, if you like, a site that can be of utmost importance to our tourist ventures, and also to, if you like, the creek area. A young family was walking up as well, and they did not go into an area that was totally degraded and uncared for, which is Blackguard Gully, which I think as an entrance to Young, it's a total disgrace, if I can use that word. I see this funding that has been put on public display, it has been accepted, for us then to just pull it off the radar. And my question would be, if it's going to be funded in the future, is when, and I doubt very much if the when will ever come about. I think the stage 1, even by doing the paths and putting the facilities there, is putting us on the right path to maintaining and bringing back to life an area that is most important to the heritage and also the cultural heritage of this area. And therefore, I certainly endorse Councillor Tuckerman's resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Anyone else like to speak against it?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak against it for no other reason than I can't believe what poor planning this is. It's to think that we can be initially put a request in for $500,000 for Blackguard Gully and then not know what we're going to do with it appropriately, I think is just mind-boggling. I think it's appalling that we think we can flip the money from a cultural heritage item then to a pool. Surely, when you read further through the reports, you'll see that the creek area is underfunded and that there's projects we're about to vote out there. I mean, if we're going to suspend the Blackguard Gully project, surely it should have gone to the Burrangong Creek project. I mean, and done a like-for-like swap. It's just, I can't believe how poor this whole process is. But having said that, I think my alternate would be to put the money to Burrangong Creek and get it completed, rather than having 2 half-finished jobs in the Young precinct.
Thank you for that. So we had 2 speakers for, 2 against. Does anyone have the speaker for? For? Yep.
If I can. I agree with the resolution for the reason that this has been going on for many, many years, from the research, the work, the background work. There's been numerous reports given. To say that it's impacts on anything to do with Whiteman Avenue is completely a separate issue, and it's quite irrelevant. But it's got huge cultural and economic benefits for the whole Hilltops region, being a significant part of our heritage and our history, and it can be tied in with many other things within this area for tourism.
Thank you. Okay, we've had speakers for and against. Talked about that. I'll put the motion that's on the board. We'll write a reply to Councillor Tuckerman if you'd like.
Thank you. I think one of the things that I'm quite passionate about is actually creating this area for tourism. And I agree with Councillor Rolls. If we defer the funding, I just can't see anything happening in the future because of obviously other pressing matters. But I refer to Carra Council and the work that they've done in regards to the breakout, the camp area. It's a simple tourism project where they have active voiceovers in regards to the history around the site, And it's a delight to learn about the history, and I think this is something that can benefit our tourism within the Hilltops. And I really think we should carefully consider not funding this project. We've been out to community consultation. The community are responsive to the plan and to seeing something happening with this area. So I really endorse the recommendation or the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Duckman. I'll put the motion that's on the board. All those in favour? Thank you. Again? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 1984. Galong Village Landscape Master Plan adoption. The reports here, councillors, and the recommendations in front of you. Move, Councillor Horton.
Seconded.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, as discussed at the last meeting, it's gobsmacking the amount of funds that have been used in drafting these plans by the consultants. That said, there is still, I haven't seen details provided of what money is in the Galong VPA money. It was certainly in the last minutes of the Progress Association meeting that there was a needed clarification.
So you're speaking for or against this?
Until we know how much money is available and the likely opportunity of ever funding this, it's hard to...
That's what I'm trying to find out, what you're trying to say, Councillor Flannery. I'm just trying to understand where
I'm asking a question. Do we know how much money and whether any of this is ever likely to be funded from VPA money?
Would staff like to respond to Councillor Flannery's question, please, in regard to this item?
Look, through the Chair, Councillor Flannery, at the two budget workshops that we've held we have looked at reserves. One of the commitments that management has made to the councillors is that in order to get a solid balance of all of those reserves, we need to undertake our quarterly budget review from March, which is happening right now. So we are guaranteed to have quality balances for you at the next May meeting, and indeed in the versions of your budget papers there is an outline of those balances. We just need to, one, clarify that those balances are accurate, and secondly, make sure that we have understood the purpose of each of the reserves, and we've made that commitment to bring that information back to you. To do so earlier without that quarterly budget review and not see the movement of those monies over the last quarter would be to give you information that could be potentially inaccurate.
Mr Mayor, I find it extraordinary that we can put this master plan up for adoption with a total spend of $2.7 million, which by the time it is likely to ever be funded will probably up around $3 or $4 million, and the General Manager can't tell us within a bull's roar of how much money is available. I mean, it's just appalling.
Thank you.
Through the Chair, I do actually have a list of the reserves here with me, which I can circulate to you. Indeed, councillors, the majority of the councillors have that information.
So if you could answer the question, how much is in the Galong VPA money?
Through the Chair, the issue with the reserves is that the VPA reserve monies are not allocated to a particular section, so we have some $338,572 in VPA roads and some $252,449 in VPA community projects. So we're seeking to get that detail.
So the answer is you don't know.
Okay, that a mover and a seconder for item 1984. If there's any other questions or debate, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. And we all look forward to that reserves list coming, Councillor Flannery. 1985 is the JUGIONG Business Area Landscape Master Plan again, councillors, and the recommendations there. Move, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Item 1986, Burrangong Creek Beautification Project. The reports there, councillors, and the recommendations there.
I'd like to move a motion, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Tuckman would like to move a motion.
Can I? Thank you. That council place... Are we all good? Council place the draft Burrangong Creek Master Plan on exhibition, as in point A. Agree that there are substantial changes proposed, for any reason the report be submitted to council, as in B. Agree that if there are no submissions received proposing changes, or there are no changes proposed for any other reason, that council adopt the draft master plan for Burrangong Creek, and commit the funding for stage 1 to the pool, completion of the pool project.
Second it.
So I'm just clarifying for my own interest, the amount of dollars we're talking about there, Councillor Tuckman, on stage 1.
Yes, so $460,000 and 29. Oh, 460 and 29.
So the
That's a stage 1.
Pathways.
That's a stage 1. Yes.
Stage 1 reads there, it's got a heap under stage 1 on the documentation I'm looking at, that's all.
So there still remains approximately $460,000 to be delivered as part of stage 1. So that amount to be put to complete the pool project.
Part of stage 1. So what are we calling stage 1? I'll ask staff, what's stage 1? Under stage 1 I've got connectivity pathways, solar lighting units, sporting walk of fame signage. It's all under stage 1.
Councillor Tuckman was just referring to the pathways section of stage 1.
Correct, yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, is that motion on the board? Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded. I missed the seconder, sorry then. John Walker seconded it.
Question, Mr Mayor, just in
Councillor.
relation to that, there seems to be some conflict. The sentence councillor's accrued costs of $173,227 in constructing these pathways, it still remains approximately $460 to be delivered as part of stage 1. Yet when one goes down to the table, it looks like the $460 is the total cost and $173 has been expended out of that. So there's not a $460 remaining. There's a figure far less than that.
Thank you. That was my concern. I could not follow the maths of the... Staff, would someone like to speak to that and clarify that for councillors?
Through you, Mr Mayor. On page 229, there is a table there of stage 1 works to be delivered. That totals $612,000. I believe then the confusion there is out of that 612 there has been design works, and that includes the consultants' works for the master plan works as well, which leaves about 430 odd thousand that we're talking about elsewhere. I believe that's the way it's worked out.
I'm not too...
That's correct.
Okay, the mathematics aside, I've had a motion moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Tuckerman?
Yeah, I just think the pool project obviously is more important at this stage, and I think that we should look at committing funding in further budgetary considerations. So take the funding out of this project to complete the pool and then look at funding it in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. I'd just like to get just a little bit more clarification, just for me a bit slow on the uptake here. Just in case I vote for this motion, I'd like to know what's not going to be done. Exactly with that the $460,000 we're talking about, if that's a number that we can come up with. Well, not approximately, I need to know where this money is and where it's coming from, because if we move notice of motion that require funding elsewhere, we need to know where it's coming from and what's not going to be funded.
Mr Mayor, perhaps the table on page 231 provide a little bit more insight.
So again, we're referring to what Councillor Wallace alluded to, the 460 minus 173.
That would be my summation from that, and I note that that would not leave $460,000.
I'm pleased that my maths aren't that bad either, Councillor. So can we have some clarification about the money we're talking about and what that money was to be spent on if we are to move it somewhere else? Staff, please.
Through the Chair, I agree. The table does appear to say that connectivity pathways are the $460,029, as does it, as is articulated earlier in the report on page 227. In other words, the balance of funds that have been expended, which I take to be $173,227, need to be shuffled against those other projects. So clearly we haven't done the connectivity pathways other than the design work for the master plan, but it does appear as if the expenditure is offset against that. I'd ask the Director of Infrastructure if he might be able to shed some light on whether the $173,227 is actually design costs and could be spread across the whole project, so that indeed if we just took out the connectivity pathways, we're still going to realise a range of other projects against that, or indeed that we won't be doing any of those works in stage one, and however we have expended design fees of $173,227. Is that clear? Thanks.
Through you, Mr Mayor. We have expended $173,000. That includes the entire master plan for that total of $1.78 million job. My understanding has been that there is no detailed design yet on any of that work. It is purely on the total of the master plan works. If I go back to the page before that, it indicates segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, segment 4, 5, 6 of the various pathways. So there's segment 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 within the table on 231, and the general connectivity pathways, which I am struggling in this report. Connectivity pathways are identified then on page 227.
They're different pathways. Well,
yes, they're different pathways. And they are part of this overall master plan. $173,000 is part of, and I must correct myself there as I read that part of the report, that is what we have spent on those pathways so far. We have done those connectivity pathways. They are built now. Which leaves us back to the table on the segments on 229 that have not been done yet.
Mr Mayor, frankly I find it amazing that we're getting this report and the Director tells us $173,000 has been spent on one thing 1 minute and then the same figure has been spent on another thing the next minute. Maybe the report should be redone so the staff can understand it, so then we can understand it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wallace. Yeah, I'm still struggling to see what the money that was mentioned that we're trying to move what wouldn't be done?
Mr Mayor, just some simple mathematics. If we're taking 173,227 from 460,029, that's 286,802. There's another $6,500 left in the solar lighting units and the Walk of Fame signage. So that's about $293,000. That's a long way off what we would need.
Mr Mayor, there was a recommendation in the pool report that we reduce the footprint of the amenities building.
There is. We've got, dealing with the business we've probably got in front of us at the moment is probably taking up enough time, and we're still not very clear where we're at. So I've got a notice of motion, had a mover and a seconder. We haven't got a lot of information around how much money we're redirecting or what we're redirecting it from. Does the mover like to speak to that notice of motion?
Can I have a question before she goes?
Councillor Walker.
How much the segments 1, 2, 3 and 4 of that, with those 80,000, 60,000, 46,000, how many of those segments have been allocated or completed or stand, or is that still stand?
Yes. Through you, Mr Mayor. Segments that have been done are the connectivity pathways on page 227 to the value of $173,000. The segments 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on page 229 are the ones that are still to be done.
Which I'm assuming adds up to $460,029. Is that correct?
We'll go through a process, councillors. I've got a notice of motion that's been moved and seconded. Did the mover of the motion like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'm just wondering whether we change it to defer the rest of the connectivity pathway. So there's from the report that I'm reading, there still remains approximately $460,029 to be delivered as part of stage 1. So what I'm asking is that part of the stage 1 and the connectivity pathways are deferred, and that amount of money is put to the swimming pool project to complete the swimming pool project. Does that make sense? No.
Well, it does if those figures are correct.
Mr Mayor, can I move an amendment, because we're not going to get anywhere tonight, that we defer any further construction of pathways subject to a further report?
Councillors, please.
Just, Mr Mayor, if you just bear with me for a little bit. Based upon my mathematics, if I accumulate the unspent monies for segments 1 through 6, if I account for the unspent funds, that component of the $460,029, which is not $173,227, the difference in the connectivity pathways and solar lighting, it appears as though there's $564,387, give or take a few brass razzoos, of funding available in the remainder of the project.
Does that include the removal of Section 5 altogether, noting the report says Section 5 is unfunded?
That's inclusive of all the funds in the table.
Okay, councillors. Councillors.
We shadow a motion, Mr Mayor, to defer this item to get a report that everyone can understand.
Okay, so I've got a motion that's been moved and seconded. I presume there is one on the board, I can't see. And the mover spoke for. Does anyone want to speak against the motion before I put it?
I speak against it if we don't have a vote on it.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to defer for further information in regards, so I will withdraw the motion.
Is the seconder happy that the mover is withdrawn? The seconder is. I'll defer now to Councillor Wallace for his foreshadowed motion, please.
So that this matter be deferred to the next council meeting pending a report that council and staff can understand.
Seconded Councillor Manchester. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again?
Just a matter of
Yeah, maybe we put it out on exhibition.
just through the chair, just in relation to your motion, you said so that we could understand the report. So just for the benefit of officers, so we can prepare that report so that you can understand it. What I'm understanding is that you're asking to defer the matter so that we can understand if $460,029 as stage one, if that was deferred, how that would actually impact the project and what would not be done in that.
Yes, I suppose that's correct. I mean, I would vote against that in any event, but I think we need to have that information.
Mr Mayor, just a question. I'm aware of a number of sole purpose roads within the Shire. Is there a specific reason why roads now must have more than 3 people before they become council roads, noting that those unformed Crown roads are roads, so the whole intent of them was to give access to people who may be otherwise landlocked. So I'm just wanting to know, is there a reason why we have chosen the number of 3, and does that have any implications for the maintenance of single-use existing roads?
Direct that to the relevant director or general manager.
Through the chair, I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure who drafted the Crown policy.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The reason for doing that, I guess, is to look at some sort of fairness and equity across the region. If it's one sole beneficiary of a road, whether it be a short length or a 5 kilometre length or a 10 kilometre length. This policy was drafted on it may be unfair to the remainder of the community to have to maintain that length of road for the beneficiary of one person. Then we looked at 2 people or 2 owners and said, well, the 2 owners, it's quite reasonable to expect those 2 people to share ownership and have a deed of agreement between 2 people to maintain such a road. Once it got to more than 2, which is the 3 or more, we looked at that and said, well, that starts to become very difficult. So, yes, it's probably appropriate that council then take ownership of that road. And that was the thinking behind that. That's to try and put a bit of fairness and equity through the all residents of Hilltops.
Thank you for that.
Does it have any implications for existing roads that are where there is a single occupant at the end of it if we adopt this policy?
Not, to my knowledge, not in terms of existing roads, as they have been accepted under an existing policy, not a new policy.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just one more question, Mr Mayor. Are we legally able to take... We're asking the Crown to hand the road over to us, and then we are selling that road back to the applicant. Is that correct?
Through the Chair, the paper roads, as they're referred to, can stay as they are until improvements are required. In the event that the landholder wants improvements, what happens is that triggers a need for council to take possession of the road. After council take possession of the road, we've got options in relation to what we do with that road. If I haven't outlined that clearly, I'm happy for you to flesh that out, Phil.
So we've had legal advice that there are no problems with adopting this policy. Handing green roads over to private landholders. Selling green roads to private individuals.
In terms of this, whatever the Crown owns that road, it's a Crown road. Council then resolves to whether they wish to have that road or not in accordance with this policy. If we say, no, it doesn't fit within our policy, we say to the Crown, no, we do not wish to own that road. We give you no, or we have no objection to you selling it to one individual because it would become their private driveway.
The problem, as I see, is the Crown has been in the process of trying to sell off these roads, and the first applicant may not be the individual who requires access. And the whole purpose of putting these roads in was to guarantee every lot access to a main road. That's why they're there, they're roads. So we're, in effect, in my view, jumping the hurdle whereby we're saying we have no objection, but the person that requires access may not be given first offer of that road.
I take your point, Councillor Flannery. I take that you spoke against the recommendation. I had a mover and a seconder of the recommendation that's there. If so, the speaker against, anyone wants to speak for it? If not, anyone else want to speak against it? If not, I'll put the recommendation that's there. All those in favour? We'll go again. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Abstained. Well, that's what I thought. I had it marked down and I wasn't sure when you were going to go into it. Okay, so that recommendation has been carried. Councillors, we get to 1988. I've been notified by the General Manager due to additional correspondence received by some people involved in this matter, and there's an email that I received, I think everyone received earlier today, that I've been asked for a procedural motion of deferment in regard to this matter.
So moved, yeah.
We've got plenty of movers and seconders. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Again? Thank you, councillors. The matter is deferred for further negotiation between the parties, is my understanding. Item 1989, Hilltops Works Report. Receive and note the information provided on works completed and works planned.
Move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Rolls. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, a couple of questions, and I have asked this at previous meetings. Could I please be advised of, and it keeps getting noted in the Western, spot spraying of noxious weeds and suckers in the CBD, towns, ovals, parks and gardens as needed, what funding source that's coming from. Could I also in Southern, it notes roadside shoulder spraying on MR 84 and goes through the list. Could we be please be advised at the next council meeting, as opposed to the last one that I asked and haven't been advised at this council meeting, what money that is coming from, please? Is it coming from the weeds funding, or is it coming from hazard reduction?
Through the Chair, if I understand the intent of the question, is that weed spraying is actually covered out of general purpose revenue. Council does not receive any funding for weed spraying. We indeed receive program money for weed inspections.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions?
My understanding is we get money from both LLSs for noxious weed control.
Through the Chair, my understanding is it's program money. It's actually not for weed spraying.
Could that be clarified?
That might be a take on notice and clarify that for Councillor Flannery, please. Any other questions or comments in regard to the report? Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, just a question through you to the Director of Infrastructure. Can we get some idea of when the last lot of maintenance was done on Terrence Gap Road, please? And in particular, can we get some details of the culvert cleaning works on Terrence Gap Road, please? Thank you.
It's a pity that the question wasn't asked a couple of weeks before, Councillor, but yeah, I'll take that. Okay, any other questions or comments on the report? If not, I'll put the report. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Next item on our agenda is item 1990, the Action Summary Report. The Council note the status of the Council resolution from the Action Plan and endorse the removal of completed items from the Action Plan. Do I have a mover or a seconder for the report?
Question?
Can I get a mover or a seconder first for the report, please? Councillor Horton, Councillor Armstrong. Question, Councillor Armstrong.
18/44. Can we get a bit of an update on that? I do note that the completion date, expected time frame is rapidly approaching.
Page 256.
256.
Oh, thank you. Who'd like to respond to Councillor Armstrong's question?
Through the Chair, Councillor Armstrong, I'm just getting a qualification of the question. There isn't much detail in the item. Is that the item that's located at Bendrick Murrell?
I don't wish to speak about personal issues at this particular juncture, but I would ask that Council get some sort of an update, given that the completion date is April 19, and we are indeed at the April Council meeting.
Certainly happy to provide a report to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in regard to the report? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. That takes me over to correspondence for attention, which is action says nil, and the recommendation is that we note those releases. Thank you, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Stadtmiller. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Next item is Council Committee Reports. Council Section 355 Committee Reports requiring no action. The recommendation is to receive and note the minutes of the committee reports as presented. Move Councillor Horton. Seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Takes me over to, I believe, 1991. Rescission motion in regard to Resolution 1983. the rescission motion was put up in regard to 1983, and the rescission motion is to rescind the motion in relation to the compulsory acquisition of land for seas easement 2014 DA 00129.
Point of order, Mr Mayor, just a point of process. Is it normal practice for the supporting information that was at the previous council meeting to be supplied with the rescission motion? So, as someone who didn't attend the last council meeting, I don't have all the information that was in that agenda. I mean, I found it, but I had to go looking for it.
Through the Chair, know that as far as the Code of Meeting practice goes, all that's required for the rescission motion is to actually itemise which resolution you wish to rescind, because the governance process says that that is the motion that you have to look at in its entirety. If there's any changes or amendments, then another motion needs to be put up to be considered on top of that.
Being one of the movers of the rescission motion, the reason that this has come to us now is that I believe by accident more than anything, I would imagine that the councillors may have been giving some information at the previous meeting that may have not been 100% correct. I think it was spoke at the time that the people could benefit by this easement going through their properties, when in actual fact that wasn't quite correct in one case. So I believe that may have played a part in some thought patterns of some councillors when they voted on this matter. The report that Councillor Wallace is referring to, the previous report, stated that...
Mr Mayor, can I just point of order? The matter was dealt with in closed council. Is it appropriate to be talking about those details in open?
I'll defer to the people who put it into the paper.
Through the Chair, what you have is a rescission motion, and that is what you need to vote on. It's probably best left to voting on the rescission motion as it stands.
So I take from that you don't want me to speak
on the matter. I think if we need to speak to it, it needs to be enclosed.
There we go.
The reasons regarding the rescission motion, because they were discussed enclosed, they really need to be enclosed to be able to discuss them. I would have thought, but I mean...
Okay, so taking that advice on board and working with that, the recommendation is that Council rescind that motion 1983 in relation to the compulsory acquisition of land for sewerage scheme easement 214 DO 00129. I'll just seek a point of clarification. Councillors first.
Mr Mayor, what determines the matters which are held enclosed?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I missed that.
Why was it put into closed in the first place?
When I asked that question, I asked the same question, so I'll refer it to the same person I asked that question to at that time.
Through the Chair, there was an affected stakeholder that was a council staff member.
So does that still affect the voting?
Through the Chair, the rescission is to actually rescind that motion. Indeed, you have another item in the report that is proposing another motion. And yes, you can put that into closed. However, we think that the solution in the notice of motion is not such that it would affect that party again, so therefore can be dealt with in open session.
Thank you for that.
I'll move the motion.
Well, I'll be the seconder of the motion then, In that case, move Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Ingram. Given what's been said about the recommendation and speaking to it, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That recommendation is carried. Thank you, councillors. That takes us on to item 1992, which has come about the notice of motion pump station facility. Again, the Mayor is responsible for that being there. This is the alternative to the motion that was just rescinded, councillors. The report's there. I have a mover for the recommendation. I'll move it. Second, Councillor Walker. Any discussion?
Just a question, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering to the staff through you whether there is any other alternative to these two options, or the one we've rescinded and this alternative that's being put up.
Through the Chair, I'll defer to the Director of Infrastructure.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Two options generally are for gravity sewer or for a pumping station. In this situation, we have looked for a number of other options. The only other option available is the sewerage pumping station in the bottom location of this development.
Councillor O'Connor, question?
Just a question for the Director. Can the cost of the pump station be given to the developer?
Yes.
Yes, as part of the development, the developer will pay for the pumping station. However, council then takes over that pumping station as ongoing costs.
In the previous report that was before council, it was stated that the developer understood that he would be paying for a pump station and had accepted that.
Through the Mayor.
Councillor Rolls?
I have a question for the Director. I noted in the first motion that when asked a question about which is the better form, then gravity feed was the better form or the preferred option, especially for the long-term infrastructure needs of Hilltops Council. Is that correct? Does that still stand?
Gravity sewer is always a better option, in my opinion, because it means that we take out the risk of failure of electrical, mechanical items during storms, just random breakages. So gravity sewer is far more reliable.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. Would anyone like to speak against? Or would the seconder like to speak for?
No, except to say this is the original condition of consent of the DA, so it should apply.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, it just concerns me that in the report there is a statement that goes to another DA, other development, as justification for this decision. And in a merits-based planning system, there should be a merits-based approach. I don't believe that point in there is a valid point when looking at the argument for or against a pump station. The issue of ongoing cost is one that concerns me greatly. The other thing, of course, is that there is a significant potential for ongoing development in that particular part of town, and the opportunity that a gravity sewer main would offer is substantial. I believe it would add value to the properties rather than detract from them, and I speak from experience in that having a block with a sewer main that runs 4 metres from my front door of my house. that hasn't stopped the land values increasing by about $45,000 over the last two valuations. The gravity feed system itself is, as the Director has indicated, a more preferable solution to this pump out station. I think that Council's making a rod for its own back and for the backs of the ratepayers in going away from the gravity sewer main. I would request that Council officers revisit any opportunities that may exist to run a gravity main further to the east towards the creek, and in doing so provide gravity sewer to all of the properties that may potentially be serviced by that gravity main.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Anyone else like to speak for the notice of motion? I will. Just in regard to the last point Councillor Armstrong made about locating the sewer main down lower, I asked that question on day one. Was it an option to have that down the creek? And they told me that it wasn't. So I take that on notice from staff that told me that it wasn't an option at that time. In regard to what's in front of us now, the original report read, and there was 2 points that stood out. Firstly, that the developer knew of the cost of putting the pump station and agreed to it, and that the residents had been approached about acquisition and had strongly said no. They were the two things that stood out to me. I don't believe either of those things have changed. So that's why the notice of rescission went in from myself, and that's why I'm happy to support this notice of motion. Anyone else like to speak against? No? Okay, we spoke for and against. Anyone want to speak for? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Just hold them up, please, team, so we can 1, 2, 3. Against? The motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. The next item on our agenda is again the Mayor. The Mayor's been busy. Alteration of a motion that was negated on the 27th of February 2019. And councillors, I think we're all very well aware of the circumstances and what happened here, and it was probably remiss of me on the night not to move. Councillor Armstrong, could I have your attention, please? And Councillor Rolls, you'll need to listen to this, Councillor Rolls. It involves you. There'll be plenty of time after the meeting, Councillor. That decision's been made. Oh, I lost my track. That's the and I wasn't quick enough or alert enough on the night to move an amendment to the motion that we spoke on that night, which would enable this what's in front of us now to be supported. Councillors, there's no need me to talk on about this. The recommendation's there. I fully support it 100% and would never oppose that part of that the motion that was put there. So the recommendation is there, the rescission motion. And
move the recommendation, Mr Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Horton, all those in favour? Aye. Again? So be it. Thank you, and take care, ladies. That brings us to the end of our open council meeting, so I would ask for someone to move us into Councillor Flannery, Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors.